Okay, good evening and good morning, everyone, whoever is here share with us the time. Um, Welcome to join our webinar session. We are very honored to invite our host, Michael Gabellini. He has been the design icon for a lot of landmark projects in New York. And in our previous articles, we present a collection of his most highlighted projects. So this is his first time sharing with Chinese audience on an online stream. So let's discover his design philosophies behind each project. Before we start the interview, in our past episode, we've invited Adrian Zeka, Yabu Posherberg, Peter Eisenman, Bill Bensley, Thomas Hitterwick, and David Rockwell. So we now also in this time, there are hundreds of professionals in design industry and also real estate professionals also in our group chat to share this interview together. So now let's begin our master talk. Let's welcome Michael Gabellini to say hi to everyone. Hi, Michael.
Hello, everyone. Pleasure to meet everyone this evening.
So we are very honored to have Michael here sharing with us his stunning design works. So in this interview, we have two parts. Firstly, Michael will introduce us his design career, and in the second part, we'll go details regarding his projects, regarding his residence and hotel projects. So Michael, I have a first question. Please share with us your design theory in general.
Well, I think I would like to introduce the idea of how we think about design. Is I was thinking about the notion of design and why design matters, and especially in today's environment. And of course, with the struggles that each and every one of us has been going through over this last 6 months. For me, design matters is something which is at the essence of anybody who is an architect, a designer, a developer, anybody that's engaged with the discipline of design, that it's something which I think touches everyone in every way. And I think that it's something which also when you think about experience and you think about life's journey, that I feel very lucky to actually be a designer, to think about the craft of design and the way in which design, by keeping it simple, by keeping it real, and I think never to doubt the power of imagination, that we can use design as an activating agent of change. And change is something which, if you think of the past, present, and future, that this is something which changes all around us. In fact, as I'm speaking, there really isn't much of a presence. It immediately goes into either the past or into a future sort of tense. And I think that for me, I mean, thinking about what we do, that design has the capacity through the idea of modernity, this idea of the everyday, and how we actually elevate and enhance the daily activities of life, that we can use design as this potential and quite prescient catalyst for change.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And what do you usually get inspiration from the design ideas?
Well, I think for us, I mean, inspiration is all around us. It can be something that's exceptional. It can be something that's very mundane. It can be something that, you know, on a talk with a friend or a small walk down the street, that this thought process, which is very unique to every one designer. And I think that with designers and architects in general, everybody has different stimulus, different things which engage them, different things which encourage them, and the ways in which you think about design in a very unconventional way. And to use different aspects, whether it's for us, it's contemporary art and the artists that we work with through our projects, through our exhibition or museum design, as well as nature. And for me, when I think of nature and the kind of natural world, the way in which geometry shapes everything. For me, the Fibonacci series has always been a very prescient sort of tool in the way in which the Fibonacci series really represents how and why things grow, and the geometrical structure and the way in which they grow, and how that then begins to overlay, in terms of my background from design school and then after that, as a kind of sculptor and thinking about the world in a three-dimensional way, how you can begin to separate this concept of desire, of intent, the effort that gets placed in front of you within your studio or within my discussions and collaborations with my partner, Gabellini Sheppard, and then the way which then that begins to translate into each project as an individual portrait. And thinking about our clients and thinking about the program and the location, the site, the possibilities and potential of each project, that the spatial portrait, like a blank canvas, really starts with our sensibility, but of course, really understanding and sort of listening to what lies ahead and how we can find an individual path and a very unique sort of adventure to find a very compelling way to think about the aspects and the craft of design.
Thank you, Michael. Would you like to go back to the previous slide where we can see your global practice with other architecture firms? I think that's very important to share with our audience. I think in the previous two slides. Yes, this one.
For us, I mean, collaboration is something which is a river which runs through our studio. It's something which we innately embrace. It's something which we love to think about and we love to engage in. We've been so very fortunate to work with some sublime masters, both architects, designers, theater production people, contemporary artists, fashion designers. And so for us, this idea of collaboration is something which we kind of lay at our feet, place it on the table, and kind of move it around, that when we're engaged with a project that could be with Tadao Ando, could be with Bjarke Engels, it could be a project which we're now working with Alvaro Siza, the master builder from Porto, Portugal, that each one of these is a kind of individual ecosystem. And the way in which we can share different perspectives on the world, on the way in which we live, of course, on the potential of elements such as light, air, sound, and water, the sort of elements which for us make up an interior, an environment, a spatial possibility, and then the way in which we develop for each project with the architects or other collaborators that we're engaged with, this kind of world at which we share specific goals, specific words and develop a project mantra that takes us through, so that therefore a project narrative is something that can be very expansive, but also like in film, the way in which you shoot a film, the way in which you concentrate that film and edit it down into something that can become a pearl, that can become a drop of water. And within that pearl or drop of water is an entire world into and unto itself.
Very impressive. Each project is the result or the vision of different practice, and it's a vision built by all how to say the no matter the external joint venture, and also different sectors of professionals. So after we get to know your practice with global designers, we are interested to know your daily work life with your partner, Gabellini Sheppard. So is there any main tasks, divisions, like how you work together?
Well, as we say, we work hand in hand and we work arm in arm. And I think that's the whole idea of our practice. We think about it as a sort of spatial embrace, that we embrace everything, again, without judgment. And therefore, it allows Kimberly and I, who, as partners of the studio, are design partners. So we work together on every project. It's something which we find that for both of us, that we can always sense and create different possibilities at the beginning, especially working with builders and developers with the visions that they have, and how as a partnership that we can really first listen, then understand, and then reflect the will and the wishes and really the parameters around every developer project or every client that we're engaged with. So Kimberly and I think it's something which we love to think about. What we really have is sort of 8 platforms of design, whether it's what we're showing here is in retail design, hospitality, private residential, condominium design, furniture, lighting, whatever it is, that we believe that design is really something which, again, can fit on the top of a pin. And therefore, it can be a world in miniature, but also then how we begin to use the discipline of design, stemming, you could say, from a kind of Bauhaus tradition, going back in that way, where everything that we touch, pretty much everything that we hear, is designed, anything that's outside of the natural world. And so therefore, we engage in this very robust debate and research, and really sort of set up the sort of possibilities for how we're going to approach every project, the way in which we begin to think about materials as we begin to paint the canvas, but also the way in which programmatically and also operationally and sort of functionally, we think about 3 words: simplicity, utility, comfort.
Comfort.
So simplicity for us is something which, you know, is really a concentration of experience. And then the way in which with that experience, the way in which you apply it to a project. Utility is something which for us is the kind of performative or performance aspect, the functional quality or the operational quality of space. And if you get those 2 in alignment with a project, that you can therefore draw out a kind of sensory response and create a kind of sense of pleasure, fun, and to create a sense of comfortable and a comfort environment.
Thank you. So now let's go through the details of your projects. So take the design of Upper East Side residence as an example. How do you practice the design memory approach? And we are very interested in this staircase design and how is this spatial structure of the project is planned?
Well, thank you for the question. It's a fairly expansive one, but I'll try to answer that. For us, I mean, philosophically, we think about design memory and spatial presence. Design memory, like in this just extraordinary house on the Upper East Side in Manhattan, not far from Central Park and a stone throws away from the Metropolitan Museum. Is a project and a design from Bodsworth, the architect, a very formative architect of his time, operating about 1880 to about 1920. And so this project is about 1880 and is an individual landmark within a landmark district. And so for us then, thinking about design memory, it's thinking about a past, present, and future tense of every project. So this project, as a house, certainly had other lives before it, but understanding then how we burnish the legacy or sort of memory that's embedded into, or the structure into a given house, and the way in which we move that and burnish that memory forward, and the way in which then in this kind of old and new sort of discussion, the way in which we can embed the sense of modernity with a kind of historical tract, but not imitating history, interpreting and interpolating history, so that with this, which was a residence for a family of 6 very young children, to design a 6-bedroom house over 7 floors. And the way in which then, like this, is showing the piano nobile and the family room on the right, and the way in which we can begin to generate our aspects of light, of air, the quality of the space, the way in which we begin to overlay this material complexity. And again, how then with this overlay, that we begin to create this idea of a sensory-driven process, something that where you start with ideas, you start with concepts, but once you begin to enter into a development of the design, you let those ideas go, let them go, and therefore bring this notion of emotion, of a sensory-driven, experiential quality of design. Of course, thinking about operation and the performance or the performative aspect of a kitchen and the kitchen breakfast dining terrace, and the way in which you begin to overlay then a kind of graphic identity as well to both materials as well as to introduction of clients' art collection or different collectibles which they bring in. And for us as well, I mean, with this, as you see on the right, this staircase, which for us is, as architects and as interior and exterior sort of spatial planners, and also we consider ourselves also spatial advisors in that way. As a spatial advisor, the way in which we can create a very clear positioning for how the family, in terms of their lifestyle, they want to live, and then how we can reflect that lifestyle in the way in which we do. And in this project, the way in which we've actually dug down, not 1 floor, but 2.5 floors into the sort of earth of Manhattan, creating, in this case, a level for a a game room and also a play court, as well as a spa component, which goes down even further, which we're very excited to have been able to provide, because we're very, very interested in thinking about the holistic nature of design. And in this case, this is 2 levels down, but still that back wall that you see on the left for this swimming pool and also thermal water pool is lit by skylight and enhanced by light that we're putting into the space as artificial light. And therefore, the way which in this white marble, which the marble comes from the Isle of Split, where Diocletian's palace was, that this is a material that was once used for very large bathing complexes, as well as the element of water, and the way which then also with light, we can begin to very, very subtly paint the water, color the water, and to sort of highlight the effects of the elements inside the space.
Yes, before we go to the next project, if we take back to this Upper East Side project, we noticed that also for designers, usually the basement lighting is really difficult to deal with. And you just mentioned that you used a lot of artificial light to bring back the natural light as possible. And also we noticed the game room. And is there any special design concept in these 2 rooms? Maybe our designers, they are pretty interested to know these details.
Well, for us, I mean, light is used as a material in and of itself. So every project of ours, whether it's for a fashion designer, whether it's for a commercial condominium of 400 apartments with public area, whether it's an arts gallery or art museum, every space, because of where it is, the location of it, from morning, afternoon, and evening, has to have a sense of place. And to create a sense of place, you need a sense of light. In the perspective or the way which you look at light. So in this image on the left, so this is the ball court that you're looking out. On top of you, the ceiling here is the outdoor terrace on the ground floor that is connected to the kitchen. And in the back of it are these ley lights that are structural glass that you can walk on, that allow approximately 3 meters in length of the light to pass through this atrium in a very similar way that the Romans used to do that and actually carve into the ground, into their bathing complexes in ancient Rome. And so for us, we are always learning from the past, but always very curious in terms of the way which we use technology. And in this case, light for us is something to light this 7-story staircase, again made of the white marble. And each floor has an individual sort of character of the light that we can adjust and push in the morning to boost it, and in the evening to soften it, so that we can also create a level of ambiance, an atmospheric effect, but also, more importantly, the health and well-being which light gives you. And so for us, when we think about light and use light and the strategy and technical aspects of light, it's to use it within the principle of providing space and providing our clients with a sense of comfort, pleasure, and well-being.
Thank you. Now, the next question is regarding the 152 Elizabeth project. Is one of your most celebrated real estate projects. So what's the big difference between working with commercial real estate versus the private client? this is a question that most of our real estate clients care to know.
Well, if I can describe it shortly, it's everything and nothing. So with everything, from private residential to commercial real estate, and if we can hold on this image for a moment, because this is a very unique project for us, and as one of our collaborators with Mr. Tadao Ando, of course a master builder, and a very fertile and very potent collaboration which we had. Private residential, if I can use a fashion analogy, is like designing haute couture. And the way in which you translate haute couture in the kind of level of customized or customization that goes into a project or into a family's or into an individual's way of living. And so it's something which is very psychological. It's something which is very personal, emotional, and very, very personal. The way in which we then can translate that experience into commercial real estate is thinking about then the way in which you go from an haute couture level to a pret-a-porter, to a ready-to-wear. And so that there's certain designers that we have worked with, like Giorgio Armani, Jill Sander, Ferragamo sisters, is that each one is operating with haute couture, but delivering haute couture at a pret-a-porter level. And so for us, I think that this is a very good kind of analogy. And the way in which we, on 152 Elizabeth Street, which is in downtown, and it's the convergence of three neighborhoods, Little Italy, Chinatown, and the Lower East Side. And the way in which with Tadao Ando was not only commissioned, but decided to wait to design his first project in New York with a wonderful developer, Sumeda and Kurana, which now we've done 3 projects with. And so this is something which Tadao Ando wanted to do a project which was small, not a super tall, but something which was also in a neighborhood that was in a continual state of change, of redevelopment, of revisioning, of recalculating what the next generation of this neighborhood and community will be. And he loved the kind of, I would say, post-industrial quality of the environment, which is not a kind of luxury environment, but it's so, with these 3 communities sort of coming together, that you have such a rich tapestry in the way in which to, for him, to place the elements of concrete, glass, and metal into a very, very simple sort of box that creates on this corner this, what you could call a kind of crystal box or a crystal jewel that is encased in sort of masonry concrete.
Very special and boutique feeling.
This is what you're looking at, is the entry on the lower left, is the lobby to the building, which is the first fretted glass water wall by Tadao Ando. And our response to the top left and the right side is for both of us that was using the element of water. So that for this project, we decided that our mantra was 4 elements: light, air, sound, and water. And this was our kind of air and water sort of chamber. So this is a very simple lobby, and this is our piece of water in the background of the reception desk, which is a light and mist piece, which changes during the day, which then mixes with Ando's fretted water wall. And of course, then the sensory-driven audible quality that when you enter this apartment, your ears and also your attitude begin to soften And you leave behind you the very vibrant and chaotic city where you were living, and entering into this nature of a sanctuary, of a kind of spatial embrace. And with these images also, this idea of the flexibility, of the convertibility of the interiors, to place as few walls, to want to create as few doors as possible, but also then to create the sense of closure, of privacy, of openness, of the public nature of space that goes through all of these interior projects. And if we can see, I mean, of course, what's a project working with Tadao Ando, which for us was a very balanced collaboration of us traveling back and forth between New York and Osaka to spend every month about 1 week with him for the first 4 months, to really engage in a very fertile work session and really debating just how to think about the project from the outside, and how then we begin to think about, from a developer and marketing point of view, the layouts and the anticipatory quality for the sales and for the lifestyle that we're implementing and implanting into a project. Almost like placing a seed in the ground, that each one of our seeds begins to open and to flower as we begin to move through our design process. And with Tadao Ando, how we think about materiality, so that the interiors, of course, do have our sensibility of a kind of minimal, or let's say a simple way of thinking about, in a direct way, thinking about materials, but also the overlay then, and how we can create this very kind of potent, very luscious, very kind of, again, sort of sensory-driven interior. The bathroom, for example, not only has radiant floors, but they also have radiant walls. That they also have steam units that are inside of their bathing chambers, and that we've been able to enhance the daily activity of the bathing, sleeping environment by thinking about it. If you think about a Roman bath and thinking about the 18 steps in a Roman bath complex, that in this bath, we've been able to place 6 of those bathing components inside. So whether it's in winter or whether it's in summer, you're able to control the cooling of the space or the warming of the space. And so that the materiality and also the proportion and sense of scale and light is all surrounding you. This is his public park on the exterior, which is very wonderful. This is something which actually does not, and is not seen by any of the inhabitants. This is only a 9-unit building, but it's something which, in giving back to the neighborhood, that Ando-san really believed that this wall, rather than leaving it as a simple party wall to the next building, to actually create this flowering vertical park, something like a green sculpture that will flower and grow and have a different definition and color through the 4 seasons of the year.
So the roof of this project is really amazing. And I'm sure there are a lot of design features on the terrace. Could you share with us the unique design thoughts?
Well, this was something working together, that the height of this building by zoning could only be 85 feet tall. It's a very restrictive corridor. And you'll see on the left image that this is a boulevard called Kenmare. So Kenmare Boulevard, which links Soho area to the west. And straight out in the distance, you see the Williamsburg Bridge, which connects across the East River to Brooklyn. And so therefore, the penthouse, which is a 3-story unit, has this 360-degree view of all of the 4 sort of compass points of Manhattan. The one compass point with Andosan was very interesting, that in the bottom center image, the splitting of these 2 water walls just at the point that you're on axis with the Empire State Building as a kind of marker. And then also in the upper right, the way which then in the upper terrace, which is a 3-terrace penthouse, that we create a thermal pool, a hot tub, which is an overflow fountain, a sculpture, which leads into a reflecting pool, which then reflects also all of the kind of spatial atmosphere of the city onto and into both the water and the surfaces. And it shows here, obviously, the potency in terms of the vision, that this is really an individual residence on the roof to connect this kind of celestial sky and sort of cinematic dimension to the New York streetscape. So the water walls are to the left, and the 2 levels, the main living level on the terrace level, with 4-bedroom master on the 2nd floor, and then on top of that was that roof for which we spoke about. And so this is something that, you know, when you think about sculpture and you think about the possibility of creating something which has the marketing potential, that each of these individual units was thought individually. So there are no one unit that is alike. So it was actually thought about at an haute couture level, at a private residential level, but how we can deliver the private residential level at a commercial condominium price point. And that, I think, this, again, this idea of the pret-a-porter and the way which you can apply this idea of very warm and sort of sumptuous materials, humidification for those materials on the inside, also the kind of health and well-being that goes into that was something which was both a challenge, but also spatially a reward at the end.
So moving to the next project, the 11, which is in collaboration with BIG. So we understood that you've designed both the hotel and the residential areas. So we are curious to know the difference between the space design concepts.
So this is a project which I chose to show everyone just the scales at which we are very comfortable working at. And this was a very formative and wonderful collaboration with Bjarke Ingels and the Bjarke Ingels group. This was their second major project after the wonderful kind of attenuated, triangulated tower with the Durst Corporation. This project, the 11th, it's right on the west side and West Side Drive, North Chelsea neighborhood, and working with a footprint of 2 towers with this wonderful interior kind of park courtyard of about 1.3, 1.4 million square feet. 6 Senses is the hotel that came in and is occupying the smaller of 2 towers, which Gilles and Boissier, a wonderful French couple, is designing. And we're collaborating with them, but separating in our involvement on the larger tower, which is, this is the entrance to the lobby space of about 450,000 square feet, about 40 to 42,000 meters square. a 33-story tower of approximately 300 units. And then designing all of the public areas, as well as all of the individual apartments, as well as then all of the 25,000 square foot of a very elaborate public amenities. This is on the second floor of that bridge component, which is a private dining and wine area, in which each owner of the building gets an individual area to both display and drink their wine or spirits of choice. And this is this wonderful bridge area, which is this large living room, lounge, bar area, which connects to the health club and spa component. And this is something that, as you see outside of the right side of the window, connects visually to this wonderful Frank Gehry building that he designed about 10 years ago. But to really create this very dynamic and very material rich sense of space, so that entering into this space for a bar that would become a juice bar in the morning, that would turn into a kind of cocktail and wine bar in the evening, and the way which, again, programmatically, that we begin to think about the activities that the client base and how we develop actually a character study of who is going to live here.
Yes.
And that's the other interesting thing between private residential design and, if you could hold in this image for a moment, and speculative commercial design, is that with private residential, there is a client. It's something which is very, very specific.
Yes.
And with commercial design, it's very speculative and it's very adaptive, meaning that we have to think about and come up actually with different scenarios for the catchment area and the demographic of a project. And so we came up actually with 6 different character studies that had a very brand narrative. So whether you were going to buy a 1-bedroom apartment or whether you're going to buy a 6-bedroom penthouse, each one of those is an individual character study that we could begin to sociologically, and in terms of a kind of lifestyle narrative, suppose also with our private residential base, what these potential owners and buyers will want, what they will need, and how then you also think about the difference between a want and a need. A need is something which you need. I need to get up in the morning. I need to go to sleep at night. A need is a function. It's something which activates daily life. A want is something which you desire. It's where pleasure lies. And so we're always oscillating between a want and a need, and how those two go together into creating a very rich and complex ecosystem, which in this case is the 11th. And this, what we're showing you here, is after entering through a doorway, entering into the health area. But as we're going through this, you'll see that this was really thought about as this deck of a terrace to a luxury yacht. And so the floors, as you see, the perimeter of this gym surrounds what then is on the interior lies, again, this kind of Roman bath complex. And the way in which we begin to think about, if we can go to the next slide, the way in which we can think about this idea of bathing and of all the treatment rooms that then surround. So the activity, you go from the outside into a kind of layering quality, that at the glass line, you have this 3-sided, very active gym and health facility. And then lining that is this, what's referred to as Houdini glass. It's a very, very special glass that will allow you to see from the inside out but won't allow you, when you're actually on the outside of the gym, to see from the outside in. And a very special glass that was developed, so the materials that we're using on projects that are at, again, a kind of couture level in terms of their technical qualities, technical principles, but the way which in this company, which we brought in, Effigibi, a wonderful Italian company. So this is a company that we've worked with to bring in this modular, prefabricated spa in different parts of this public amenity for all of the residential clients. And in this case, obviously, you see the sauna, the hot and dry on the left, and the spa, which is the steam, and also different cooling waters on the right. And the way which we can kind of insert this modular prefabricated nature into our bathing area. And then, of course, what this project is all about, this kind of almost Brancusi-like twisting tower of Biarchi angles, where each apartment, because each is sequentially, floor by floor, very subtly turning, that each of these apartments individually is like a thumbprint that has its own kind of unique character, the theme, and the way in which we develop, of course, all of the bathing and also the kitchens. This is working with this wonderful company, Minimal, an Italian kitchen company, Canova actually is their name, with Gaggenau, and the way in which then you're thinking about kitchens and baths as the kind of service components, the way in which they also become stages for the way in which, again, we enhance and elevate the daily activities of life. And so this was using this Taj Mahal stone and a leather finish. The entire bathroom is a stone bathroom, so that not only could you literally just with water hose it down and squeegee to clean it, but also that, again, it has radiant floor and radiant wall heating in it, so that those walls, if your floor gets wet, you can just turn on a switch and that water will evaporate. But by evaporating, it's actually adding and putting back moisture into a room. So therefore, cosmetically, in terms of health and well-being, that it then creates that sensory effect. And this is where you can now see the way in the placement of this project and that unit that you were looking at was somewhere in the upper middle tier of this tilting tower, and its relation to the city, to the water, to the edge of Manhattan. So the west side, west coast was the operative word for it, and the way in which we could align, as you see, what is the big project to the project to the left, which is the Frank Gehry, and the project to the left of that is the Jean Nouvel. So also the way in which scenically, in a kind of urban context, even if we're operating as interior designers, engaging with the design architect and the building architect, that we're all playing as a team.
Yes.
We're all on the same team. Rather, with some projects that you see, that the way in which they're put together, that perhaps the outside and inside aren't necessarily complementary. And I think that that's something which is so important, the way in which a developer or a real estate marketing team begins to put together a creative and technical team, so that there are differences, but there's similarities that they all share, and that they then put ego into the project. Not to have ego, but to place ego into the project, so that as the ego grows, the project grows. And therefore all and everybody is contributing to that ego and to the blossoming of the potential of each project.
Cool. And now we are in the chapter of hospitality. And one project that really stand out is your hotel design for Istanbul edition. So in this project, we would like to know more about how did design specifically express comfort.
Well, I mean, this is something which was just a wonderful project to work with. So this was a very robust collaboration with Ian Schrager and also the Marriott Hotel Group with the first edition of the edition. And the first city being Istanbul. And also within our studio, we have two Turkish nationals. And we work, of course, around the world, but you know what we like to do and what's most important to do is to make sure that when we land into a city that is not my city, that may not be your city as a potential visitor, but how then that we can embed into each of our projects the local. And how the local, of course, is always talked about in these days as something which is very important. But again, this is the way in which we think about a kind of sensory-driven concept and also a sustainable-driven narrative where all of the materials, all of the lighting, all of the kind of technical and creative interiors of these projects were developed by about 50 different companies within, I would say, about a 250-mile radius of Istanbul. So if you've ever been to Istanbul, and this is a project which is away from the Bosphorus, it's actually in the business and financial district called Levant, which has a very vibrant and affluent residential community and shopping destination. And this was a former HSBC bank. It's a 90-room, I would say 5+ star development. And to create this idea of a simple life that is absolutely at a kind of haute couture level of luxury. Luxury in terms of visual and physical luxury, but also the way which you embed it into the kind of operational kind of performance side as well. This is a living room lounge gaming area plus bar and honor bar area that transforms from morning to afternoon to evening. And the way which our hospitality design, that's the way which we think about it, is again our kind of third spoke, as we say, our wheel of residential development, from private residential to condominium to hospitality. That in the hospitality world, it's a world of theater, it's a world of spectacle, but also it's your home away from home. And as a home away from home, you can't forget that all it is a place to sleep and a place to refresh, a place to rejuvenate, and to create a kind of sanctuary. And so for us, we created two different room types. One was a dark wood, another a light wood. And in a dark wood and the light wood, you could choose, almost like a chessboard, whether you'd like to live in a darker environment, something which maybe feels a little bit more masculine, or a lighter environment that might feel a little bit more feminine.
Yes.
But the two work so well together and operating in, this is all wood, in walnut with a dark wood, in light oak, in creating, you know, just this sort of ambiance. And also as you see the lighting, the materiality of this, the sort of details, the sense of turning your sheet back and feeling the sort of sublime comfort of lying in bed. It's the sheets, but it's also the mattress, it's also the bed frame, it's also the floor that you're on. So it's this layering approach, the anticipatory quality of comfort, and the way in which providing a kind of simple overlay and creating this heightened sense of function, of performance, creates pleasure, creates a sense of comfort.
Wow. Next time, if I could stop by Istanbul, that's definitely the hotel I would like to visit.
Well, please let me know when you decide to go. The wonderful manager that is operating the hotel.
Actually,
and so I think it's something which for us, I mean, with hospitality design, again, it's something which is almost a combination of both private residential and our condominium design in this kind of world of theater.
Okay. So moving to the next question, you have mentioned the importance of art pieces in the project for very frequently. So what role do you see art playing in the space?
Well, I think art is something which is, again, it's all around us. It's part of life. And while as a designer and architect, I can't say that I'm an artist, but all of our projects are in some way representative or developed through a very diverse kind of ecosystem of artists that we work with, and also artists that we're just very enamored by. And therefore, the art that is brought into a project, and this is an image of, again, the Tadao Ando Gabellini Sheppard collaboration on 152 Elizabeth Street. And all of these are photographs. And they're photographs that were chosen because they are very active in representing almost like action painting that you might have for abstract expressionists, but with photography, the way in which light on a photographic paper begins to burn a sensory image into that paper, and the way which then also creates a world of white, gray, and black. And in the end, I mean, art is something which, and the contemporary artists that we're engaged with, it's a language that is both an international language, but it's also so personal and so individual. And that art and any kind of artistic act is something which the language that an artist might have is something which is very specific. It could be very hermetic. It could be very expansive. And it's something which is just so unique. And that for us then, when we think about art, it's getting back to the question about how we think about design and how we think about why in this world, or why the last 25 years of my life, that this idea of practice is why design matters. And that design actually permeates every field that we're involved with. And it's not simply just about problem solving. Problem solving is a process which you go through to understand the potential to unlock the design attributes, the spatial characteristics, the material base of each project. And I think of ourselves as thinkers, makers, doers. So I think that if we're thinkers, that we have the ability to think about something in the abstract and bring it into something that's very specific and concrete. We love making things. Therefore, that as we think about things, we also are modeling and tearing up paper and being quite messy in the studio. It's quite chaotic studio in order to investigate and really to think about the things that we make and to make the things that we think about. And then in the end, that we're doers, that by having this ability to on each project that for a development, which we love thinking about, of course, residential design, is how then we can create something which is just an emotion, something which is very abstract. It's a feeling, it's kind of a sensory driven. It might be a scent, but then how you actually translate that into making it, and actually then by the practice of getting up every day as a designer to do it, to simply get up and practice. And I think that for us in this way, that is thinkers, makers, doers, you could think about a baker, you could think about a jewelry maker, you could think about anybody that's involved in making something. That it's a process which for me is both universal as well as it is personal. And for me, I have to say that I can't imagine anything else that I would rather like to be doing, to get up in the morning and thinking about the 1 or 10 projects that I might have to think about during that day. And then the way which over a day and over a week, how weeks turn into a month, how months turn into a year, that the initial idea or the initial sense of where that path of a project can go, that as it's being built, that sense of a project or the abstract nature of a thought actually crystallizes itself in the actual making and doing and building of the project. So that, I think, is something which we love doing and love just reveling in.
Yes, we would love to having your more and more your designs in China and for our Chinese market in the near future. So
well, thank you for that possibility. We certainly would look forward to it. And we've been engaged with a number of Chinese clients over the year. Not so much in residential design, but in retail design, and something which for us in the studio, we have a wonderful group that I believe would be very well attuned to what is happening in China at this time. For example, we're working with Zheng Xin of Soho, China.
Yes.
For her North American headquarters in New York. And she has been, for me, just a wonderful inspiration in the way which she has developed what she has developed through Soho, China, in Beijing and Shanghai, and of course that wonderful project at the Great Wall, which she has developed, as well as some other developers that we are now beginning to have discussions with and getting involved with.
That's great. Thank you, Michael, for sharing with us so many beautiful projects and let us get to know your sensitivity in all the design details. And there's a lot of discussion in our community chat. So there are some questions that our designers would like to ask. So I will just read through. So the first question was regarding the Upper East Side project. We all like the purity and the simplicity of in terms of material selection, especially for the swimming pool and the staircase. They would like to know, is there any special technique to maintain the surface of the marble? This is the first question. Second is that in this project there are like 2 floors of basement, and how did the design solve the problem of humidity? This is
But if I can answer the, maybe I'll answer the stone question first. So we're going from stone maintenance to humanity.
yeah.
So it's a fascinating question. So thank you for the question. The stone is something which is an ancient stone. It's called civet, and it's from the Isle of Split, which you can also find this stone in outside of Athens, Greece as well. It's an ancient stone which both the Romans and Greeks used. And it's a very, very durable marble, very hard in terms of the modulus of rupture of the stone. But of course, we do seal the stone. It's used for us in a honed finish. We never, ever polish stone. It's a principle of ours. Why? Because the Greeks and Romans never polished stone.
Okay, we keep the tradition.
Now, so it's keeping the tradition alive, but what polishes it? Well, what polishes it are your feet. So in this residence, whether you're barefoot in the pool area or whether you're in slippers or socks going up the stairs, that over time or on the floors of the kitchen, that it's your feet that will burnish the stone and burnish the material and actually help to keep the material clean. Now, the floors are sealed. They have to be cleaned and resealed probably twice a year in a general maintenance program. It's an impregnating sealer. So it's topical, goes into the stone, but allows the stone pores to stay open. So it allows the stone to breathe.
Wow.
And in this way, it allows the stone, in a sense, to clean itself by regular maintenance on a daily and weekly basis. How we embed humanity, if I understand the question, into the digging down of the two floors. Maybe you could maybe just repeat that part of the question so I understand it.
Okay, so usually for residential, especially for villa designs, designers facing a lot of problems of humidity because of the underground environment, and this is happening very common here, and it has been a headache for a lot of designers. So in this case, how did the design solve the problem, or is there any special technology to avoid this kind of problem?
Yeah, well, I'm glad I misunderstood humanity for humidity. So I can now answer the question. So humidity, when you're digging into the earth, you're going to generate humidity. Why? Because you're getting to the moderating temperature of 55 degrees. So things don't freeze, they don't heat. And so the moment that we dig down, 1.50 meters or 5 feet, we're at that 55 degree temperature. And therefore we can moderate the humidity by either putting humidity into the room or by taking it out. And the way in which we do that by digging into the earth, in this case, you're digging into rock, creating a cavity wall. So we have to create one wall, and then we place a second wall inside of that. And by creating that second wall, it allows that airspace. And within the airspace, we can actually push humidity into that airspace, and then it weeps out through skylight and through vents. Or if we are in a pool, of course, you always have humidity, and also you have the smell of chlorine.
Yes.
But in this case, the pool is actually an ionized pool. It's not a chemically laced pool. So it's where UV light is filtered, filters the water, so that there is not any chemical distribution that you have to place into the water. And that allows much better sort of health and well-being to your skin. and also to the environment, where you're not breathing in chlorine or other toxic chemicals. But also then our air filtration system, of course, you have to have an air filtration system, which will, as the air climbs, to take out the air at the ceiling so that you do have a continual flow of air. As you do in with the water circulation, that the way which you push water in, the water rises, that also then in the air, as the hot air rises, you take it out, and at the bottom, fresh air is put in. And in that way, it's a recirculating both for water and air as to how we can control humidity and to actually create not a humidity-free zone, but a modulated, moderated level of humidity that feels comfortable.
Thank you, Michael, for your feedback. So there's another question regarding the project of, let me go through, the 11. So in this project, there is a gym that has a great view to the outside. And in this project, the material selection is really special. You've mentioned about the special glass from Italy, and we are wondering that in the column of this project, is that wrapped by leather, and why is you decide to use this material? I mean, this one.
Well, we decided to use leather. These are the structural columns, so they're concrete columns. And of course, as you know, in a gym, that if there's a wall and you're going from one machine to the other, you will most likely hit that wall. So all of our columns need to be wrapped in a soft material. It is leather, and it's something which is meant to be reminiscent in terms of the stitching of gymnastic equipment. But as well, also the columns, the floor is actually teak with these strips of rubber between them, like you will find on the deck of a super luxury yacht, but also taking it into a dance studio, which then has a foam cushion underneath that floor. So as you're walking across that floor, you're not aware of it, but that floor is moving. And so that if you're on any kind of equipment, and whether that equipment is slightly vibrating, that floor helps to adjust it, almost like a mattress. If you have your partner that you're sleeping with, that from the left to right side of their mattress, that you're not bothering the person next to you. And in that same way, also between the glass, the leather columns, the floor, and then the windows, especially the windows of very, very special glass. It's a 3-plane security glass so that the sound transmission is highly sensitized and muted, so that we're able to really create a kind of cocooning effect of the entire environment, and actually then put back into the space the air which we want, the light which we want, the sound which we want, and also then creating a more of a kind of active sanctuary. And again, another idea of this sort of spatial embrace with materials and the performative quality of materials that we love to offer.
Wow.